So apparently we are live, which is good. We had some troubles with the live stream, but if it's working, it's working. And I hope you guys can hear me. So we're just checking on confirmation that people can hear us, hear me talking, and do something here online. Let's see. Perfect. That is amazing. All right. My name is Stefan Kunz, and I have the pleasure to host you guys today on a live stream and share about my process, about how I work with Procreate. And first of all, I want to thank Procreate for having me here and also for making one of the most amazing drawing apps I've ever had the pleasure to work with. And just the best thing about it is they don't stop there. They keep on improving. And if you haven't heard already, like they've announced Procreate 5. I had a little beta testing yesterday on my couch, and I can tell you it's incredible. So I'm just gonna pop away some of these layers here. I'm just played around this morning. I'm gonna delete all of this. Whoa. Well, now it's all. Gonna group them all together, clear up some groups, delete, and we got a fresh layer to start with. So the way I start usually any process is looking for quotes. As many of you may know, or many of you may not know, probably more than may not know that I'm a lettering artist. I draw quotes for a living, and I love doing that. And so here is a little bit of what I do is I look for fun quotes, quotes that have a meaning, quotes that inspire and encourage others. And so that's kind of what I love to do. And what I do that through is by looking up quotes, and I have a selection of quotes on Pinterest that I have saved up here on my boards. And if you want to, you can also check these out. Let's see if I can connect to that board. Because I like some fun quotes and some deep quotes to kind of mix it up a little bit from time to time. And I don't know how it's with you guys. Here it's right now, it's almost 10 a.m. in the morning, and wherever you are, like I'm in Switzerland, it's getting colder here, and I feel like Pinterest is not working for me. Had some trouble with some apps. Anyways, I know which quote I want to check out, but I wanted to show you guys kind of the process, because drawing and delivering on a product is just one part. Usually you need some inspiration, you need some good help with that. And so what I've chosen, the quote that I've chosen today is, you can do, and I'm just going to make that a little bit smaller, you can do anything, but not everything. And something that is really important when you write out something, especially when I talk, I usually make a lot of mistakes, is to make sure that all my spelling, all the words are in there, because if you don't start right, you're gonna have trouble later on trying to fit in some words. And unlike an illustration where you maybe not see something that you try to plan, with a quote, with words, people tend to notice, and I've had that many times. I actually like to switch around the orientation, just because I work on a 4x5 canvas, because most of the things that I do, I create are intended for Instagram. So I use a canvas that is 4,000 by 5,000 pixels. It's not necessarily needed to do that on Instagram. That's like a resolution that is way too high. But for example, I've gotten some opportunity to share pieces like on print, on other places, and that's where it comes in really handy to work with a higher resolution. And I know for a fact that this resolution here allows me to draw on 22 layers, which is a good thing to know about, that you will be limited with the amount of layers. I've heard that it's mainly because it allows like other older iPads to run with it, even though this newer iPad, the 2018 iPad, might work faster. It's still good that older iPads can keep up, and smaller iPads will have also a bigger limitation on these sizes. That's what I know about. So the reason I draw out the quote first and write it out just simple is because it helps me kind of to see the length of the word. So I kind of like box these words into rectangles. So I kind of know the shape, the length, like is it a long square or a long rectangle? And here it's really helpful to know that. So in composition, there are like a couple of ways we start out. So number one is we start out by thumbnailing. Thumbnailing, can make that actually a little bit bigger so you guys can see this. Thumbnailing. Second one is sketching, and the last one is finalizing. And there might be a step in between the sketching and the finalizing. Finalizing, there we go. Speaking and writing is not my strong suit, never has been. But here we have thumbnailing is something that you really draw quickly, like kind of lines. You set up a thumbnail in small ways. So for example, if I say like you can do anything but not everything, that's kind of the thumbnail. Really small, not many details, and keep it fast. Like you want to play around. You can say like I want to have these words a little bit rounded. I want to have anything big but not small here. And then maybe everything down there. So this helps me to kind of get a shape, sense of the shape of the drawing that I want to do, of the lettering that I want to do. And sketching then becomes this part where I start to write it out easily. You can do maybe something like this, anything, and still very fast. And that is something you have to practice when you're doing these exercises or when you're sketching. Thumbnailing is learn to become really fast at sketching, because the faster you work, the more you can get done. The more you can try out, and the longer it will take you, the more it will take time to actually try out more things. So right now I can create like a ton of these versions here of these thumbnails, and then I can pick out a couple ones, translate them into a small sketch, and then again, finalizing means like recreating this piece in a big scale, trying to draw these out, and then like really focus on the shape of the letters, not just the skeleton, and then coming up with colors, with textures, with styles and everything, and then just really like try to make this a full thing and not just a sketch. And so these are the three things that we are going through with this quote. So I'm just gonna select this here, throw this out, and so this is how we can start now. So let me put on a new layer and then just start this one here. I don't often rename my layers, but just to make it clear, thumbnails is where we start. This is the quote written. There we go. So I'm not sure if I'm seeing the live chat somewhere. I see something here. Oh, there we go. You can go all the way down. So we see people from the East Coast, and Daksha Giri is a fan, and I'm a big fan of her. Amazing. Lebanon, Australia, Indonesia. Wow, people from everywhere tuning in. I love it. Okay, so like I said in the beginning, thumbnailing, so I can actually make the brush a little bit bigger. And I still decide to zoom out a little bit just because I don't spend too much time in the details. So I feel like a nice bow here with the you can, the do, the anything maybe here, something big. The but not will be a little bit tighter here, and everything, I like this kind of shape because it has a round shape, it has a nice symmetry, between the sides, and so that is very helpful when you're doing any lettering or composition. It's great to have this balance between those sides. Now, I want to keep on trying with more. So, for example, maybe we can do this all in one line, make sure that the bigger words are really highlighted, then but not is a little bit shorter, and everything should be a little bit longer. But if we scale it down, it will be a little bit smaller. And the words you want to focus on, the words you want to make big or like put your emphasis on, those are the ones you want to make big. Those are the ones you want to focus in and bring in all the attention to these words. So I kind of really want to see that you can't do anything. That's kind of the center of the message. So even that feeling, finding a way to make that bigger could be really nice. Or just do anything would be really nice. So another one is, for example, I'm starting out with the anything, maybe something a little bit more rounded here. Do something here, but will be placed here, not everything. And then you can maybe straight line there. I don't know. That could be something. Still very, very rough thumbnail to have there. Let's try another one just so we have a selection of different ones. I'm already pretty much set with this one, but you never know what you can come up with. So let's see. I like that you and can has the exact same amount of letters, which is perfect because you can nicely like flip them, mirror them. Then so I'm just going to take out these lines again. The do here, why not make this kind of like a smiley? It's funny, that's already what it looks like. But not has the same thing, and then everything here. So I kind of like these two. So number 1 and number 4, and these two are the ones that I kind of want to go forward with. So let's do a sketch with these 2 elements. So I'm going to pick this up here, duplicate, going to go back to the layer, select the second one here, duplicate this one, and now what I can do is hide the others, hide this one, and kind of start, let's see, there we go. Move this up, and then just hide it a little bit. And now since we have kind of a basic shape, it's really interesting because I can go away from, well, I'll move that into a new layer. So kind of write it out. Again, I just need to make sure that I see the quotes. So I'm just gonna copy that. I drew in the wrong layer, which happens quite often. Here, duplicate, and I'm just gonna hide that. So here we go. So I'm going to start out with roughly sketching, and that's fast. You can do, and that feels like filling out a box. Really simple way of doing something. Do anything, but not everything. Now that one, I can take this around, just rotate that a little bit, just so we get a sense of the nice shape, and maybe even move these around. So if I'm not happy with the anything, like that it's going out a big way, like I kind of want to introduce some script in here just to kind of mix it up, not keep it too boring. And so I will try anything, and with these letters like the Y, the T, for example, I'm just having to move a couple of things around. This here, just making sure that I don't cut in too much. Here, I'm gonna just make sure to remove, And so I can scale it up and down if I want, and just need to make sure that I use the space right. So the T and H can be nicely connected. And the more you practice these connections, these letters, the more you'll feel like what you can do and play around with. Like you could play around with the A as well, but that's not what I want to focus too much on right now. It's more of like just trying out things, see if I can change around the shapes. For example, the but not could be changed in here. Maybe even follow this line here. So you have kind of this circle shape, and I want to maybe follow this here. And then I can fill these gaps. So we always have these negative spaces that we want to fill in equally in some way. And that's what I'm trying to do here, is to nicely figure out a way to play with these flourishes, these ligatures, and make them really nice and flourish them around to use the space. And the thing that is usually hard is there's always something that will bug you when drawing something like this. So you'll see that, for example, like I'm not happy that this kind of fills in all around here. So there might be a couple of things that you want to change around, that you want to play around with. So even though this one looked like my favorite, I'm gonna put this one down. Gonna maybe try another version here. Again, you can maybe, to mix it up, use this. It's a little bit slanted, and so I can elevate the O and then still add something here to add kind of a space. That way works well. And then maybe go again with that tie shape, well, that bow tie shape, more than just a tie. So you can do anything, and then maybe, what if we did something different here, but not, like we can introduce a banner that will go around like this. If you're having trouble drawing banners, the best way is actually just to start with one shape and kind of like finishing that, and then just pick that up, duplicate, and then rotate it 180 degrees and connect it here. You merge down this layer, and then again pick up the whole piece here, and then you can kind of rotate a little bit, make it a little bit smaller there, and then add, like, color this one in. Like these will connect in some level there, right there. And then you can write in like butts, knots, and then finally end up with, going in here, everything. So this is, I kind of like this one, and you can already start to imagine some deco elements like rays that go out or something like that. So that's one version that I like too, and I'm just gonna drag that down here, and we can finalize it later on, but this is basically something to really help us, give us a great idea of how to do something. Now we've used already one shape. Now let's pick up this one here and see what we can do with this thumbnail. It's like a good smile and a bad smile in one. And let's see. You can, and as you can hear, it's already getting repetitive. But the time you spend really thinking about that quote is actually really helpful to get some thoughts later for Instagram when I post something. I usually already have collected a lot of ideas of what I want to say about it because I've spent so much time drawing it. And again, here the same thing with the bow tie shape, but not everything. And we can see the everything is a little bit longer than anything. So the size of the letters will be a little bit smaller. Kind of need to move that around. But here we go. We also have a second version there that would also work. It's not, I don't feel like it's too fancy. Could be a really nice, simple lettering. And just to top it off, there are ways that always work really, really well to do a composition. It's, for example, to have like all slanted lines. And for that, in cursive, you can, well, maybe even better, can do anything. Now let's see how we fit in. But not every thing. There we go. And because it kind of looks like a triangle and I want to equal it out at the end, there is a way, like the quote doesn't end with like short words, so you kind of have to get creative and come up with a way to do it yourself. So maybe a crazy ligature here in the back, flourish that goes around. Because here it's nice, it starts rounded, and that's how you can fill the shape. So that's still an idea that I would throw out. So I'm just gonna erase that. And finally, also, if you're really out of ideas and you cannot come up with anything, I've helped myself out with creating composition grids, which are really a selection of grids that help me to come up with some quotes. So you have a ton of different selection of grids that you just have to fill out. So it's kind of like these thumbnails that I've already pre-designed for myself and also just for others to use. And so I'm just looking for something that would kind of fit this idea that I already have. And one that I like to use is, for example, maybe this one. So I'm just gonna toggle this around. Straight, perfect. And again, I can just start filling in with my brush. So again, same idea, you can do, and then I'll use this line. Anything. And then I might have to delete some parts of this here, for example, that's even this here, because I can finish but you can't do anything, and I'll finish it here on everything. Well, now it almost looks exactly like the quote we've used before. And there you see the spacing between the words, and I might look here for not, there we go. So actually pretty similar to this, to this one here, but a little bit more space, a little bit better. So even what I would do is to move this out. And since I've drawn on 2 layers, what I will do here is going there. Anything. Voila. Trying to merge these layers together so I can use them all up. It's going to look a little bit broken off, but that's totally fine. It's still a sketch. And here is probably something that I want to play with. So since we are doing a live stream and you guys are watching here, I would kind of want to give you a voice to choose one of those four. I'm going to put some numbers right next to them, and you guys can choose. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are my favorites. I'm not going to say which one my personal favorite is because I want to let you guys decide. And the challenge is always to kind of work with your client's wishes. So that's sometimes it's a challenge to actually work with that because it might not be your favorite, but then you have to work it out to become your favorite. So it's always a good challenge. So let me know in the comments on the live stream which one we have. So we have already a voice for number 2. Let's see what else we get. If we have a couple more good requests of people saying what they like. We get 2 again, we get a 4, again a 4, we have a 3. Wow, now some are coming in. There's a bit of a lag between the time that I say something and that you guys hear it. This is normal. 2, 4, 4. A lot of 4s coming in. I like that. 3 and 4. Well, it looks like we have a winner. Well, maybe it's because Chris Talk is just commenting a 4 all the time, over and over again. Very good. Well, if we take Chris Talk out of it, how many 4s do we then have? We have a lot of 3s. But we had a lot of 4 as well. So I think it's a tie between 3 and 4. More people for 4. Cool. All right. I don't have a coin. I wish I had a coin. I could play a coin around and just like let it fall down. You know, the thing that I like to do when I really don't know what is to go on Google random generator. And since we have, so let's say 1 and 2, doesn't look like my thing is working. All right, I'm taking my Wi-Fi on my iPad is not working. I'm just gonna play the random generator on my phone, and it will let you guys know between 3 and 4. Still have so many. Tell Siri to flip a coin. Does that actually work? All right, let's see. Siri, flip a coin.
It's tails this time.
Well, now I should have chosen what tail is. All right, this is heads and tails. So you guys probably can hear it. Siri, flip a coin again.
Heads.
There we go. This time it's heads. It's too easy. All right, we're gonna pick number 3 here. I'm not gonna choose the heads. I'm gonna duplicate that and hide everything else because we are ready to go. And so right now, I'm just gonna sketch it up a little bit more because now we can play around with the type. Still open to the idea of changing the A. And see what I can do here. But what really is important is I need a straight line to help me draw this out. And there are multiple ways to do this in Procreate. You can either going to drawing guide, adding canvas and changing into isometric shape, then rotate this around to line this all up. That's one way to do it. There's another way that I like. What is great about Procreate is really that you have the flexibility to implement your own brushes, tools, create things. And so a friend of mine, we have created these grid builders and letter builders really to help us make it easier. So I can go in here and use these shapes. And so what I like to do when I start out, open layers again, create a new layer, is to actually introduce, I need to hide the drawing guide, but it's to introduce these shapes, which will give me a line to work with. So right now, I'm introducing this. I'm going to be moving this a little bit up because I don't want it to be this high. And also these shapes give me a good idea where to draw the letter. So if, for example, I would draw anything in here, now I get a good help of distance from every letter. I know kind of this is the space between the letters. That helps me a lot to figure out how to space everything correctly. And it really is kind of like a ruler guide to help you draw and get the shapes right, especially the heights of the letters. So they're all in a line, they all flow equally, gives you a really good, consistent way of drawing something. And again, I can go in here. Maybe that's a little bit too out there. This way, kind of nice. And again, here I can just play around. I want to match this height here so that this corresponds to that height there. Still very rough sketches of the letters, but already it's getting a lot more precise on how I do things. And I'm still not thinking too much about texture. I got it in the back of my mind just to see how I want to do things. But again, want to make sure that these letters are built in the right boxes. So I'm going back in. I'm going to use a square box that I have here, a block, and I can move that around. I can just top that up. And the great thing is just to place these wherever you want. I'm going to place it a little bit higher and then move them to the desired shape and size. And we also have these nice arc here that we can add. I can move up the brush size, add it here, and then what is really great is to make sure that they're all in symmetry, is to have these kind of anchor points that we've built around this, just to really help you set this up right. I can decide whether or not I want to have the top or the bottom part. So I'm gonna go with the lower part, and I'm just gonna use these. I feel like those fit in nicely. And then I'm gonna, instead of doing the same thing at the bottom, well, actually I'm just gonna go back here and then duplicate that layer, and I'm gonna drag that down, make sure that it is centered still. Oops. Make sure it goes back to the anchor point, and then drag it down, down, down. So then your letters become really equal in size and shape, and somehow I feel like the butt knot could actually have the same type and shape like this. and just move that a little bit higher up with this, and they're just going to be a little bit smaller, which is perfect. So now I could actually hide the sketch in the background and now just sketch on top here with my sketch brush. There we go. And here this one is great because it's 3 letters, so every letter could fit in nice in here. And I can copy where the letter is placed, how it's spaced, exactly here. You can just gonna hide that. These help lines. And then here the second part, but not. And then with everything, just gonna spell it out again, just so I know how many letters everything has. See the split, so that's 5 and 5, which is nice. So it's like and as you will see, the I here actually cuts off the space of the 5 letters, so it's more like 4.5 and 5 total. Now we can erase this. And so now I basically have the skeleton of my letters. I'm gonna group all of these, like since I have them all in one, I'm just gonna hide that a little bit in the background, maybe hide it completely. And now I have a great overview of how everything looks. I've added this a little bit slanted. Maybe I've already overdone this with the ligatures. I'm gonna go back into that layer, maybe hide those ligatures for now, just so I can first place the words in the right place where I feel like this is where it should be going. Make sure that I've spelled everything right. And right now, as you can see, this doesn't feel balanced at all. Anything is leaning towards the left, and so kind of creating this slight imbalance, and I want to change that. Also, maybe rotate that a little bit. And let's see, that looks like it leans a little bit more to the right here with the NG, but the A is still so big that it has more weight on that left side. So I feel fine about that. And now with the space, again, I can use that space with these letters and fill it out nice and easy. Like use that negative space to kind of play around with the shapes, and the same thing maybe go around here. I like when the G goes all the way to the top. So already, just having moved that, skew that a little bit, and that already helps a lot with the shape and the size. And now the only thing that I want is like change the size of the butt knot. And I'm actually going to go in here because I want to use those grids. So I'm selecting both layers, and you can kind of change both by just using these lines and then moving that around, which is great here. And now, because now I'm starting to think about the final image and the final product, what I'm going to do is, or what's going on in my mind is, how can I actually make the do bigger but not having it to kind of touch all the rest. So one thing that is interesting, and I like to duplicate my layers just so I don't lose anything valuable, was kind of like creating like a maybe 2D piece and then kind of like doing something intricate where you have like both elements like going back and forth, like behind and in front. And maybe I can illustrate that quickly. If you use different colors, you'll probably see that better. If I use a red, for example, and for that, I'm just going to create another layer. So imagine the dew would be in the back here. And to show kind of like how it would go on top and below, just move that layer up. And then you kind of like hide some elements. So it would look like the H would go behind and then loop in front. It will look like this here goes again behind, maybe behind here as well, and we'll come back in front there. So you have like these possibilities how to make it even look more interesting, more intricate, and play around with the letters better. So I kind of like this idea because do anything is so intertwined. And I kind of like this. It works pretty well in this shape and size. So the only thing that I would have to do is to actually, again, move the butt knots here. Whoops, lost the selection. Gonna move that down. There we go. So right now, actually really liking this, and that's a good thing. It's good when you start to really appreciate what you're drawing because you're gonna have way more fun if you feel like you have a great idea. And the thing is, I didn't have that idea when I started out. It just came along during the process, and so that's why sometimes you just gotta start drawing, start creating, and as soon as you are creating, the whole process will come to you, and like the ideas will come to you while you're drawing, while you're trying to figure out what doesn't work. And so I feel like we are ready for the next step, which is finalizing the font, the type, and everything. And I'm just gonna rotate the shape here just to match. Okay, lost the selection. Match this type. About like this, maybe not. Taking off the magnetics on that shape helps me to be a little bit more precise and always have to not forget to take it back in. Awesome. Great. So we've got this done. Still, again, it's too early to think about colors and color scheme. Like we can always add those colors at the end using clipping masks. The texture will become more important as we go on because you want to think about the style and texture of the piece. So what brushes you will use, what elements you like to introduce. Those are going to be more important as we go on. And one thing that I like to do there, now I've drawn on the wrong layer, feels like still have something. All right, that looks good. Is now to play along. Let's group these together. That's perfect like that. All right. So now I'm going to hide this, and I'm going to start off with drawing the anything in the shape here. I feel like I've had the distance right, and I'm still thinking of the texture that I want to use. And just drawing out like a skeleton. If you're used to doing brush calligraphy, this is a little bit different since I'm just drawing like fine lines and not going too much detail of the thickness, because I can always add the thickness later on, but it's harder to add the thickness or just to really work in precise. Like I'm already having trouble drawing the line the way I want it to, and I can just go around here. That looks good. And the thing there. And in case you're having troubles with rounded shapes, what you can do is like draw the straight lines, go around, wait till it snaps onto the curve, and then kind of like move it around. And what I really love is that sometimes if you draw like a line out here, it either connects to an anchor point at the bottom, or it will connect to an anchor point like here, like you can move it freely around. And I still haven't figured out exactly why it does the one thing and not the other thing, like why it connects sometimes to the anchor point at the beginning and sometimes at the end. But that's a something I'm still to learn, and I probably will figure out later on. And all right, this is pretty much what I want. And right now here, it's interesting. I know that they will link in between these letters. So what I want to do is also find a way to make them wrap around really nicely between the letters. So I could actually go behind the O, but I feel like I need to make the loop shorter here, and maybe extend the one here so that one will loop all the way around the O. Well, I feel like I'm drawing the wrong layer. I am drawing the wrong layer. Too bad, that was all for nothing. But it's never for nothing, it's all practice in a sense. So we're good here. I love the comments. Shubham is waiting for Fresco, then waiting for Procreate 5, and then deleting Fresco again. How good is that? All right, these lines, always about making them consistent. And tight. All right, there's the N. So in case you're wondering why I move my canvas so much, it's because there are just better ways to draw a letter, like a line, in some way, in one direction than the other. And sometimes you just have to move around. Like on paper, you would move the paper around so much, and I like that feeling here on Procreate 2, is how much you can just move around, and also for me to gain another perspective of the whole drawing is to move that around as many times as possible, which also helps. All right, that looks pretty good. I like that. Then for the letters on top, I love drawing letters on top, but one thing that I also like is draw them really precisely and make it easy. So I use the bold letter builder, which is again a brush here, and just drawing these out. Gonna quickly make a long line. Oh, that's why it's not working. Then I use I can space the letters in between. If I am too bored to actually write these out, another great way is to use the font, add text, and then you can write out. You can, and you could play with that if you are not too much into lettering. You can also just add the fonts and add them into these shapes. That works really well too. But we've added the letter builder font here. And so it spaces them out right, and you can change the size, you can change the kerning, make that a little bit closer together, like this. And so I actually can delete this here. I'm just gonna move that around. I don't think I can, well, actually I can warp it. So what I'm gonna do, freeform, is I'm gonna put it in here. But what I do most often is not duplicate that, but like merge down and then twist these around. Make sure like this. And now I can use the warp function where I place them into the grid here. And that's where the lines are really helpful. They really help you to see whether or not you've put them into the right place. And since I am very, what do you say, like I don't enjoy doing things twice. I'm just gonna delete this part because it's the exact same thing here. I'm just gonna rotate that around and place this in here. That way, you kind of save up some time. And now the good part is I could do the same thing on the bottom lower part, and I will do that as well. I'm gonna put this in here, and then just gonna duplicate because it actually should follow the form nicely, like that. Just need to make sure that the spacing is pretty much right. And in the end, you'll always like adjust the spacing anyway. So right now I have 9 letters, and if I remember correctly, everything had a couple more. So I'm just gonna actually duplicate this here. Let's see. Actually, I can just duplicate. And then I will erase some parts. So I'm just preparing my drawing so that it will go a lot faster afterwards. Here we go. So that looks great. And now I can merge all of these here. So we've got 10 letters, pretty much all spaced equally, and just trying to put them into the right shape. That looks like it's balanced. And I'm gonna add another one for the do. I'm gonna use a condensed. And just making sure that the canvas is straight. Perfect. And so I can move these up to the desired shape. Like that. And then I'll do some optical adjustments later on, but this also really helps me a lot to place these later on, to draw the letters. And finally, the but now basically has the same size and you can, so I'm gonna duplicate that. Make sure rotate it right. There we go. That's how easy it is. All right. Finally, we've got everything ready. For the scripts, it's still something working on that we are working on to get those into a tool that really helps you to draw these scripts easily. But that's, I'm in the wrong layer, but that's at the moment where we are. So let's start with a brush that we want to work with. So for example, I love this paintbrush. Gives you kind of the effect of like wet mix, and I like that because it has in the brush rendering, I use the wet mix because it kind of like blends it well together. If you change that, for example, to normal, you'll see it gets really dark. It has those nice streaks still, but it doesn't create this nice blend that you will see right there, especially when you go on top of something again. So even the glazed doesn't recreate that same way. The wet mix is really just a really nice rendering of that, and that's something you can really look forward to on Procreate 5 is the nice rendering. So I will start with this wet mix flat marker, maybe just to help me with the grids. I'm just gonna move these all together, change the color. So what I did here is just alpha lock in here, and then now I can just fill layer and change the color of those grids. So when I draw now in black, that it's actually still easy to see. And I have a new layer, that's fine, I'm good. So I can follow the shape here. So there is the Y. And that's why having a letter builder is so easy and practical to use. Is really just now I can kind of fill this in and you'll see how fast I can move on. Because I want to keep it simple, I don't want to add too much right now. There's still a lot to be done. And then the O just goes around. There are different O shapes you can have. You can also just go around here and just like close it off, make a little bit more square O than round O, but I feel like the round O feels pretty nice. So I'm just gonna go around and draw this O. And the good thing really about these letter shapes is that now all our letters will have the same thickness, the same style, the same look, and that will look beautiful in the end, because consistency is a key element in lettering, in typography, in drawing anywhere. Like, you want to create some consistency in your letters, in your styles, in your strokes. And if you're like bored of just this basic style, like, there's always plenty of ways to kind of get out. Like, you can make more of a Western font by adding like tips at the end here. These serif styles. You can also just make it really strong serifs if you wanted to. There are a ton of ways on how you can play around with the letters and not be stuck. In the same way, you could use also just add text if you wanted to add some elements in here. But as you see, this is a nice style, and I zoom out again. Now I just know, like, all right, I can, that's the optical adjustment that I'll do later on, is to move in the spacing of the letters and make them more equal. And so that's something you'll do pretty much at the end. That's not necessarily the one thing you need to do right now, but it's kind of nice going in to just already see that this will work. Here you can see that this is not necessarily the right shape, so I'm just gonna follow the curve. If I'm not sure even, I can just go ahead, draw a line, and then hold down my finger to snap, and then kind of have like a really straight, rounded line to follow that. And the only reason it's not straight and curved is just because we used warp to move that around. So that's something you have to consider when drawing, is that can happen. Now with the lines here, with this brush, I really like to follow the stroke of the letter and leave some spaces like half transparent, because it still gives that nice feeling. Here at the A, you can see that shape. It has like the nice little lines. And this is where it would be, the crossbar. I'm just going to decide to do it a little bit lower, but kind of know exactly how the spacing in between works. So that's fine. That helps me a lot. There we go. So I'm trying to always have an eye on the comments, see what's happening right there. Again, if you have any questions about the process, something that you want to have answered, I saw a question about the letter guide. So these ones, I drew them in earlier, just to help me draw these letters faster, since we're also on a clock trying to get this process done, and also that you can see how I draw my letters fast and easy, and that gives you kind of this right tool. It's kind of like adding drawing guides, using these lines, using the symmetry tools. These are all tools that help you create better and faster, and anything that will help you create more, I feel like is a great tool to use in your pieces. So again, just gonna do a little optical adjustment, move that around. All right, that looks already pretty good. I'm gonna, where's the anything? Here it is. Maybe just gonna hide the whole drawing there. So here I'm just doing the do that's gonna overlap with the anything, and with the colors we'll make it like really nice. Here I'm just gonna do a little bit more of the square, rounded D. Again, I kind of like made this part here, like I stretch it so much, so I kind of use this distance to help me guide where this comes together, and now I can follow these lines. Easily. And this is usually the part that I like the least, is the filling out part, because I feel like it's just taking time, but then at the same time, I realize how much, like if you enjoy instead of like dreading the process, this tedious task in a sense, you realize that it's actually something really nice to do. Like as soon as people look at me doing it, or other people actually start doing it, they really enjoy it because it's meditative, it's easy to do, and that helps a lot. Apparently I have a package that's arriving right now. That's too bad for me. I'm not going to be able to pick it up. All right, it's looking good. I'm going to do the same thing here. And again, just making sure that the optical adjustment here is made. You can move that around. Perfect. You can even increase the brush size a little bit to add those strokes. But having the smaller size really is nice because it creates more strokes, looks more handmade than computer generated. And since we can create these amazing textures here, that is what's really about, to create like nice textures that you can overlay in here and follow with those lines. So the brush that I'm using is a self-made brush. I call it what do I call it actually? The flat marker. I create like a marker set that is all about painting. I love Posca pens, and I love these paint markers, and so that's why I've created this bundle, because I use them in real life, and I love the texture of it. I kind of wanted to create this same feeling. All right, this is already looking pretty promising. It's always good to step back a little bit and have a look, have an overview of what you've already done. And it still looks, I feel like, a little bit boring if you think about it. Just black and white, but at the same time, it can become also very interesting later on, because you realize like the potential that what you can do with all of that is just limitless, and you get a really good understanding of how to use that. And also, in the new Procreate version, what I've seen is also that you can have brushes that have like multiple colors, and so filling this piece out here could already be really interesting using these brushes that change color along. Like you can change the hue, the lightness, the hue, lightness, and darkness of a brush. You can change it by stroke. You can change it by the tapper. Different things. I don't have that all in my head anymore, but I've played around yesterday and had a lot of fun doing it. And had a friend over from Berlin who is also a lettering artist, and he was like next to me and just like watching me change around and playing around with those brushes. And it felt like the early days when I'm a younger sibling, and my older brother kept on playing video games, and I never got to play video games myself, only watch him doing it. And that's kind of how I felt. He was playing, and in that case I was playing, and he was just watching me play with those brushes. And you see you're a nerd, or you're a creative nerd, when people just watch you like use brushes and try to see what they can do with these brushes and play around with that. All right, that's a little adjustment there. Nice. And finally needs a little bit of guidance on the last one. Okay, that's good. So we're almost there, which is perfect. Like you can play around with the crossbar. Like sometimes you want to place the crossbar a little bit higher. It gives you more like a, well, there's a style that's called like, I'm terrible with names. I'm trying to think of the name of the style that corresponds to that. New something, I think. Well, everything is new at some point, but it's like an old style, like Gatsby uses that a little bit. And since I don't want to redraw the E, I'm just going to copy that, duplicate. It will look a lot nicer though if every E was done individually, but we don't have that much time to waste. And you want to kind of keep the same crossbar length here, or the same height of the crossbar with the other letters that uses crossbars, unless it's an A or something like that. And again, that's the beauty of this letter builder, is like you can play around with the shape, with how you want to make it look. Like you can go a little bit further down like that. I'm going to use the Y up here. Make sure that I'm in the right layer to copy this. Duplicate. We're going to start working smarter, a lot smarter right there. The only thing that doesn't work in this one, the Y, is that it's bent the other way around, so I'm just going to have to make sure that I correct this. But the size should be all fine. Everything. T shouldn't be too hard to quickly draw. Make sure that I'm moving these all back to the same layer. Oh, I just realized that I have the eye at the wrong place. That's totally fine. We'll draw the edge here. We'll move it around, and we'll get that fixed easily. Again, crossbar higher up. Let's draw the eye again here. Now we have switched these around. See, easy, too easy. Now the N. And again, if you really want to play with the styles of the letters, like this is all really up to you and how you want to draw the styles. Like these give you a little bit of an indication of the style of like if it's thick, bold, thin, like you can go in here. For example, for the G, I could go do like a nice and strong contrast G and add some weight to the sides, because that's what you want to do, is always add the weights to the downstrokes. So here you have the downstroke, here you have, that would be like a nice different looking G that you can have, which is also pretty, but not what we want to have here. Here we want to have that consistent with all the other letters, like this, and like that. Perfect. All right, now optical adjustments is, I'll move in, kind of overlap these, the Y and the T, just because there's a big space, and kind of look after the gap that is in between these letters, and the gap that is in here should kind of match the gap that is there, and that's what I'm trying to do here. It's perfect. All right, let's move in the E closer to the R, then the E here to the W, to the V, and this E as well to the E. All right, that looks pretty good. Now, the one piece we still have to work on is the anything. And what I like to do now is hiding this layer, because we actually don't need it right now. I'm going to hide also all of these and really focus on the anything. So I'm going to move this up. Yes, Luca entertains. This reminds me of the Starbucks logo in number 4 as well. That's exactly right. In the Starbucks logo that I drew, I used the letter builder and kind of like placed them in to the grid and had to move them around. And Starbucks is a round shape, so it kind of mimics the same style. So here, I found out lately that I have a very distinct style of script that I love to do, and it's kind of the big on top, like putting the weight on the top part and then kind of like looping these around. And I think I've done it so much now that it's just become part of my style. And I think that's pretty much what you learn from doing a lot of creative stuff is you learn that you might not feel like you have a style or that your style is not recognizable, but the more you do something, the more you, like, people will recognize your work from anyone else's work. And at the beginning, maybe not, just because like you don't have drawn that much. But the more you do, the more you create, the more you put work out, the more your fingerprints in the digital realm will be shown, and you will see, like, people will notice and will find out like what type of style you draw in, and will recognize your style easily. So if this is something you're trying to work out, like how do I define my style, how do I create something that other people know how to do, then this is a great way to do that. Is just keep working, keep creating, and create something that you love to do, and automatically this will become more of what you do. So right now I'm just giving the skeleton, like the skeleton, I say like this inline here is basically my skeleton, and I'm only drawing on top of it, like giving it some meat on the bone, trying to fill it out. And you see the letters all become, like, all get a very nice style and character. And I like to say that like letters have character, letters do tell a story, and that's why it's important to also choose your letters right, the styles of the letters right, because you want to tell that right story. The same way colors can tell a story, and texture gives you a story or a feeling of how something feels and yeah, looks. And again, the thing about consistency is really repeating elements. The easiest way to repeat elements is just to copy and paste. So kind of like the bottom here of the H, if you take that and you copy that and you create like an N, it should have basically the same shape and size. Like all the letters should have the same thickness, and so on. And the more you practice that, the more you learn how this really comes to play and how your drawings will benefit from practice, from playing around with these elements and learning all of these things. So sometimes I really get bored from one element, from one letter, so I just jump around to another, to the beginning again. And I really want to make sure that I have the same thickness here at the bottom than somewhere else here. So always helps to get a glimpse of what is around you, how you drew other letters, get the scale right. Like that. All right, that's looking pretty good. Now, of course, I need to change those colors because otherwise, unless you play with just black and white, you won't see much. You want to be able to read those letters really well. And so that's one of my principles, fundamentals in lettering, is that legibility. It's easy to read. Like lettering shouldn't be all about, doesn't have to be all about just shapes and making it super intricate and so on, but more of like create a message, draft a message that is easy for other people to read, appreciate, and that can encourage them in their daily lives. So for example, the A here, if I finish the loop here, it's getting a lot intricate. I feel like too much information. Maybe reducing that a little bit here. And see how this loop will finish. Definitely we'll have to see this with the rest of the letters. And now I'm just going to finish this here. Maybe even finish this a little bit earlier than planned. All right. So adding back the other layer, and now there are different ways to draw something on top of each other. So one would be to, well, change the color of, for example, anything. I just want to see how it plays out, so fill layer, and now I can mask this layer and then use maybe a harder brush, for example, my sketch brush, and try to see, all right, So if I cut it here, first, masking, important, black hides, white shows. So I can erase a little bit more than I want to, just for now, just to see where I want to hide what. Maybe that's the one I want to hide. That's a nice one to hide. The A looks nice like this, and Y. And that's the hard part here, is really to make sure that you can still read it well. That you don't have trouble, like that it doesn't cut in to what you are writing. So depending on what you hide, it'll be impossible to read, but this feels pretty easy to read. So this is also, again, you guys can be the judge of that. Like if you're not sure, show it to friends and others just to see what they think, if they think it looks like you can still read it or not. And I'm just gonna hide a little bit more here. This is hidden as well. Well, maybe I'll hide this part here instead of show the part here. And now I can really go into details. And like add this there. I could even switch the brush to the paintbrush that I used. So it's still the same style. This. And then up here. And back here. And one thing that I need to do is also just make sure that these strokes work out a line as well. So maybe redrawing this, because it actually doesn't show that back here. And maybe even have to go to that and add some color in here. There we go. And depending on the color schemes that I choose, I can still add here a clipping mask. And to sell the effect really well, I'm just going to use a pencil. Like you can add kind of like this effect of like shadows, and that will sell the effect a lot better of like interlacing, because the viewer gets the impression from shadows automatically that there's something in front and behind it. And it's an easy trick. You can do it really well, easily, like that. Kind of use a darker color, and so on. And then you could do the reverse with on the do as well. And since we are playing now with this color schemes, is I can hide the grids in the background, hides everything else, and then also the text layer. Where is the other layer? This layer here. So now I can observe, all right, it's hard to read still because it's all on in black. Sorry, black and red. And now kind of go in maybe the color palette, see if there's any cool combo that I want to use. Maybe change the background color to something darker, maybe blue. Then change maybe the UCAN into white. So I'll just flip this around by just tapping invert, like that. And then I can change the anything again, maybe see what it does when it does invert. Goes into a blue. If I'm not sure as well, I can also just go to hue and saturation and just play around and see, oh, you know, red is not too bad, maybe just not so dark, but even if it's dark, it could work. See where it lands. I actually feel attached already to the dark part. Maybe like this, do anything. Maybe I also want to keep anything in white. Let's try this. Let's fill layer. Whoa, forgot to put that in alpha lock. Fill layer. Then change. So I'm just going to add a clipping mask here. And I'm going to hide this one here first. Well, turn this one on. Maybe go into more of a gray for layer. Perfect. And change the do to another color by just drawing on a clipping mask. Like this. Maybe a different color. Like that. That looks nice. Like now I can also just play around and just say like, all right, duplicate this layer. What I'm going to do is just maybe move that. Well, why not move that a little bit inwards? Make sure that the magnetic is on. Turn that into dark, like fill layer. And then create like a lighting effect. So like a shadow layer, and maybe just blur that a little bit in the background. Or I could even, man, I need to drink something. 1 second, I'll be right back. All right, that feels better. Creating like a 3D layout. So I would actually prefer to make that dark or just a different color. Again, make sure that the alpha lock is in. Thank God for being able to go back, fill layers. So now take the alpha lock away again, and then it's connecting. No, I didn't. It's connecting all these side elements, and once you do that, you can kind of fill these parts out. And that will create a 3D type if you want. But I usually try it out with a couple of words, letters, before really moving into the next step. Because I'm not sure that that's exactly what I want, but still here, yeah, it doesn't look too bad. So maybe go back to the paintbrush, the flat marker, use the same brush here. And just fill these out. It's pretty straightforward. That, again, if anyone remembers, the logo lettering that I did of Starbucks logo is pretty similar to that. Just filling in these blanks here. And then what we can also add later is a shadow of this 3D. So that would mean just making sure that we didn't miss anything here. This works, this works. Finishing up the 3D here. And again, making sure that you didn't miss a thing. That looks pretty all right in my eyes. I'm gonna delete the layer, the do, because I don't necessarily want that right now. And so what we do now is duplicate this layer again, reduce it to the about same size. That works. Now we just gotta move that around, make sure that the clipping mask here goes on the do. And then this layer, the layer that we just moved down, that one we can move to the side or anywhere like this. For example, why not put it back here? Interesting. Let's put it all the way down here. So I'm going to fill this one in gray, or actually I'm going to take out this blue and make that darker, fill layer, and put it below these ones. And the reason is I just need to connect now these two, so that will help me here. So this is, again, same work as connecting the lines from the letters. The rest here will be pretty much dark. And so you can see there's a ton of things that you can do, you can play around with, just to create the illusion of a shadow that's dropping down. And that can be really fun to do as well. Something like that. Let's see, let's turn these back up, like that, and like this. And now if we hide this a little bit, make it a little bit less opaque, just a little bit like that. That could look like something is dropping down. That could look cool, but not necessarily. So I'm just trying to find out some good ways of trying out some things. Again, I'm just going to pick up this color here. Make it a little bit darker. And fill layer. Whoops. Again. And then take the just a little bit of blur. Something like that. Okay. Now there's still so much to play around with, and I'm definitely gonna do just that at a later point. But before we finish off the stream, there's still, like, I can still add shadows on the do here. For example, I can create like a duplicate layer of this one and then just move it down a little bit, and then use that one to actually just drop on, whoops, move that a little bit too far. There we go. Is that what I want? Yeah. Oh, I see. So there's always something tricky about when you have a layer here. This is the one, so I'm just going to move this one down. There we go. And I'm going to move this one down. Maybe switch these around. There we go. And then take up this color, make it darker, and then fill layer. There we go. That's an easy way to do a shadow without having to draw or missing anything. It's just to place that on top of each other. The other thing is really just to make sure that the blue is colored in correctly, which I haven't done here. So I'm just going to make sure that this is done right. Perfect. And then see, now I'm limited to 22 layers, so now I can erase some layers that I don't need anymore or that are just a little bit not necessary anymore. Because when you start playing around with like these adjustment layers, these clipping masks, like you get a ton of possibilities of what you can do. For example, I like to maybe color in this lower part of the do, and like that, make that a little bit darker, maybe very dark, and just lighten up the upper part here. See, there's a ton of things you can choose to play with. One thing I love to do as well is, for example, go on Unsplash, and I bet it's not going to work right now since it's using my Wi-Fi probably differently. So what I can do is actually go in here and use one of those images that I like with the shadows. Import that. That's a picture from Unsplash. It's a picture that you can use anywhere the way you want to. So I'm going to put that more into the background like this. Nice little palm tree. Change the blending mode to multiply. Maybe try some other things out. Linear burn could be kind of cool. But what I want is to give just the background a little bit more texture. The idea of something that is around floating. Again, maybe multiply works well too. Yeah, that works well too. And I can still change some curves here. Can make the darker, the bright, lighter, like the white's brighter, and so I can just play around, give it a little bit of texture in the background. Now, what else could I like to do? We were talking about, I remember that we were talking about in the sketch, if we look at this again, there was one sketch where, I'm just going to bring that all to the front. So the number 4 we had chosen, I had these light streaks that were going out. I kind of like this, so I might actually just put this back on. I'm going to use these and put these into a group, and then make sure that everything is back on. There we go. So here, you can choose to go with the dark maybe. And then maybe do some light streaks here. And that will just help really fill in these spaces that are left open. Like these here. And then again, you can also play around, maybe add some stars, maybe change to white. just some things to fill it out. But in the same way, you could also just like play around with whatever. Like I have a stippling brush, that could be fun. Like going in here, like make it look like this is kind of like disappearing, or it's all coming in back together. As you can see, possibilities are endless, and that's the fun part. And it's also the part that you would struggle with the most, since it's just time consuming to try out all different possibilities. But I always say that you should at least try one new way, trying out something new with every try. And let's see if I can try this on there. And that works this way. I'll change that to multiply. And draw like an inline. And you see, possibilities are endless, but you can do anything, but not everything. And that actually tells the quote really nicely, ends the quote really nicely, because it shows possibilities are endless, but you cannot try everything. So you got to create more on top of that, and that's pretty much it. Whoa. There's a quick phone call. All right. I think that's what I have to say about that. There's all my devices are getting a phone call at the same time. Let's see if we have any questions. Are you going to add colors to these letters? And sorry for all these phone calls. There's just some interruption here. Yeah, I'm pretty at the end. I'm probably gonna try out some more stuff further just to finish it off, but you can add colors, you can add different elements on it. You're really free to try out all these things. Again, I love the function to go and revisit the time-lapse replay. You go in, like, all right, this is kind of where we started off. We said like the thumbnailing. We started off then sketching, and we had like all these grids that we used to help us out. We selected one quote to draw. We used the grid builder to help us out with the composition. Decided on doing the do, putting that straight in the center, and I'm pretty happy with that decision. Still definitely room to improve with the color selection. And then, yeah, we built these letters, used the letter builder to draw these letters out nicely, fill these all in, and use the texture brush. That's what I love really, is the nice texture brush that we used. Then the anything, and then finally piecing these together, playing around with colors, with texture, with 3 dimensions, and so on, and just to finish it off here. Some yellow can work too. I like that. I'm trying to read through all the comments. That's why I'm quiet right now. I don't like perspective on letters. It looks too much like word art and Coral Draw. There is some truth to that. I love it. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate your time. And if you have any questions, like, you can send me a DM, an email, or whatever you need if you need any help with anything. And be sure to create something today and to make something amazing. Looking forward to see what you guys make. Bye.